Hello and welcome to Nanapod, a podcast dedicated to the fantastic manga written by A. Yazawa. I'm Crystal, and I'm joined by my best girl Kirsten as we dissect this manga, discussing everything from the emotions, the cultural impact, as well as any headcanons that might be floating around in our brains. With this podcast, we hope to preserve a shoujo staple that sadly hasn't been talked about in a very long time. So come with us. We're waiting for you in apartment 707. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Nanapod. So we are picking up in chapter 64 here, and we have the narration that says, "I couldn't just sit still and do nothing. I ran out of my parents' house without even putting makeup on and jumped on the train when I got to the station in Tokyo. It was still 9 a.m. And now we are here at the dorms, or at the very least a hotel, in room 601, and Nobu has given the search article to Nana to read. So, it says things in here like, I don't have anything to do with it, the mother of two, and kind of ... What is Nana feeling now? Blackstone's, her long-lost mother, turns up alive, and he looks over at her to see how she's reacting to it. And then there's a ring of her phone, actually. And it's actually Hatchi who's trying to call. And it says, "You've reached the voicemail of," and then she clicks off. And she's thinking, what should I do? Is Nana still asleep? Maybe she doesn't know about the article yet. And now she's dashing away. And she's like, well, at this point, it's too late for tact. And then I think it's Nobu who's saying, I don't want you to get too worked up about this article. And then he's like, but I can see why you would. And she's not saying anything yet. And then he's like, you can't let her keep hurting you. A mother who did nothing, no matter how much you suffered. You have lots of friends who are like your family now. You can face us instead. And she just looks at him, and he's got a sweat bead, and then he's like, you probably don't want a little rich boy like me lecturing you. Sigh, damn it. But then she smiles at him like, no, that's not it. And then she's like, I understand. And he's like, understand what? And she says, I know everyone's worried about me and making a big deal out of this, Heart. And he's got like dots now. And then she's like, when they write Ms. M, who runs a restaurant in Osaka, they can make up anything. You have to wonder if she even exists. And he's like, you're right. So there's nothing to worry about. And he's like jumped up, and now she's kind of laughing like, okay. And then he's got all the dots, and then there's a ding dong, and she's like, who is it? It better not be a reporter. And Nobu's like, no, there are guards at the front door. And then there's a ding dong, and he's looking at like the camera, and he sees that it's Hatchi. And then there's a beep from Nana, you can tell because it's, oh, it is him because of his ring, and he's like, hi, come in, and there's a click, and she's like, Nobu? And now she's got the, like, dots, should I be here? And then Nana's like, who is it? Don't let people in without asking me. And she's like, this isn't your place, and he says, it's Hatchi. She came because she's worried about you. And Nana goes, what? I don't think so. You're dreaming. Pull yourself together. And she's like, she's back home at her parents. And then they both have dots. And now Nana's like, she really came all the way back here to see me? And then there's a creak as Nobu steps outside, and Nana goes, don't run away, Nobu. And he says, I'm going down to get her. If I stay up here, she might not come up. And then he slams the door, and she's like, But now the think boxes in Hachi's head are like, what do? I don't have any makeup on. I didn't even blow dry my hair. I just wore whatever. And now she's freaking out like, oh my God. And now she's dashing away with all the blush lines. And it's like, well, I guess it doesn't matter at a time like this. And she's got the little slidey doors. And she's like, damn, the door shut on me. Now what? And then she turns around and she sees Nobu peering around the corner. And then there's a stomp, stomp, stomp as he comes closer, and the door slides open, and he grabs her hand, and he says, I'm glad you came. I didn't know what to do all by myself. And she's like, no one else is here? Where is everyone? And he says, they sent me as their representative. We were afraid that if all of us came, Nana would just play it cool. And she says, how's she doing? And Nobu says, she hasn't snapped. She's not crying. She's awfully calm. She's laughing, saying the article's made up, but I wonder if she's just acting tough. I don't know. And Hachi's thinking, it's all made up. Maybe that's the best explanation. And now Nobu's got the dots. And then he realizes, I think, that he's holding her hand because he lets it go with a drop. And he says, I'm sorry, let's just go up. I'm worried about leaving her alone. And Hachi's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, let me take that. Because she brought her cute little suitcase. And then she's like, thank you. And then he turns around and gives her a gentle smile and says, no, thank you. Now that you're here, Nana can hang on. And I feel better too. And she kind of looks like she wants to cry, but isn't, just very And she's thinking, my heart had been heavy, but suddenly it felt lighter. What can you do on your own? Kurata said to her. And the think boxes say, I couldn't carry it alone and I felt anxious, but I'm not alone anymore. And there's a whir as they're back in the elevator, and she's thinking, I made a mistake about what I should really be doing. And she's thinking about when Kurata said, you're just a nobody who thinks she's somebody. And then the narration says there was something way more important than trying to stop the article from coming out. And now she's seen Nana and is thinking, I'm going to stick by Nana's side. I won't let her be alone. And now they're inside, of this hotel room. And of course, Hachi's very impressed. And she's like, wow, what's up with this place? Is it a gym? Let's play battle door and shuttlecocks. Nobu's in the back laughing. And Nana says, right. And apparently that is a New Year's game, like badminton. And then Nana says, don't just hang around because of that. Don't waste your money on expensive train rides. And Nobu snatches the cigarette out of her mouth and says, hey, she came to see you. Don't tell her it's a waste. And then Hachi says, I'm not going back to my parents. I'm going to spend New Year's here with you, Nana, heart. And Nobu says, yeah? You do that? And Nana says, wait, we have to work over New Year's too. And Hachi says, then I'll just stay here with you, Nana, till Ren comes back. And then Nana's like, say what? And then there's like a little flower next to Nobu. He's like, oh. And now we've moved scenes and there's a flick of a lighter and it's Shin. And he says, Yasu, you lit the wrong end of your cigarette. And then Yasu's like, oops. And Shin's like, if you're worried about Nana, you should have gone to see her. Is your friendship with Ren more important? And he just kind of stops and says, no. And Shin says, you don't have to lie. Or are you worried what Miyu might think? And he's got kind of shrewd kid. No. He says, I really don't worry about what happens between me and Ren. And Shin looks back at him like, huh? And he says, I care about Ren. I won't steal anyone or anything Ren cares about. That's it. And Shin just pauses and says, Ren's that important to you? Even more than Nana? And he says, no. I feel the same way about Nana and Miyu. I feel the same way about all of my friends. To me, the exact relationship between me and someone else doesn't matter much. And Shin's got big eyes. And he says, but people want to label everything. So I guess I seem indifferent in that way. And Shin's thinking about when Rira said, I think people are bound by trust. And then Nana's here and she says, good morning, guys. And they all look at her like, oh. And then she's like, what? It's only you two here? What a waste. And then Nobu's like, where's Mr. Matsuo and everyone? And Yasu says, oh, they're having lunch in the practice space. And Shin says, see, she's doing just fine. And Nana looks at him and says, why shouldn't I be? And Shin says, no reason, pay up, dude, heart. And Yasu's like, all right. And she's like, hey, I'm not some damn racehorse. And I guess, in this moment, I wish Melissa was here for us to kind of dissect this. Like, I know that Yasu is practical, and, people think that he's indifferent, but he does care a lot. But I do think that it's interesting that he said that he feels the same way about Nana and Miyu, but then goes on to be like, but I feel the same way about all of my friends. And it's like, well, Nana and Miyu are romantic interests and everybody else is everybody else. So I think that there is an important distinction there, personally. But anyway, Yasu says, I would pay everything I got for you to be fine. And she's got like a dots. And then she's like, all right, so where's Matsuo? And Yasu says he's eating lunch. And she picks up her guitar and says, then let's practice. We have to kill it if we're going to rock these big music halls. And now here comes all of their group. And they're like, wow, Nana's on fire. And Genpai says, uh-oh, she's really on a roll. And their manager guy's like, good for her. And then Nobu's like, oh, Mr. Kawano. And she's like, hey, Tanuki. And he's thinking, Tanuki? Because she's like grabbed him by the lapels. And he's got a little leaf. And she's like, you have to tell Matsuo to let me play guitar on stage sometimes. And the other guy's like, you're just going to embarrass yourself. And Mr. Kawano says, play if you want to. The audience cares more about stage presence than technical ability anyways. And she hugs him and goes, oh, daddy. And the other guy's got a dots. And Shin says, she seems a little too high on life, like she's faking it. Is she really all right? Nobu says, she's okay. And Fomosato says, Hachiko rushed in from the train from her parents to see her today, heart. And now Nobu and Shin have, And then Shin says, well, all right. And then Yasu just smiles. And now we're with Hatchi in the supermarket. And she's looking at all the things like rock lobster, healthy option dried cob, or arrowhead. And she's like, and what's that? This is so cool. Yay! They got so much great stuff out for New Year's, heart. She's like, I know. I'll make osichi? God, I think I pronounced that wrong. But it's a traditional food eaten during the first 3 days of New Year's. She's like, for everyone, since they'll be practicing without a break. Shin's probably never had it before. And now she's got a little chef hat on her head. And she's like, this is my first time making New Year's food. Oh, right. But I'm going to make the best snack boxes in all of Japan. And she's like, that means I have to get a set of snack boxes too. Yay! And of course, when she comes home, she's bought all the things because when Hatchi is happy, she gets impulsive and it goes poof. And Nana's like, what is all this? And Hatchi says, I kind of went crazy. Maybe I bought too much stuff. And Nana says, we're not playing Battledore and Shuttlecocks. Don't just buy stupid crap. And she says, it's not stupid. You can use it again next year. After I have my baby, we'll play battledore and shuttlecocks. But I want to play right now. And Nana says, well, it's none of my business how you spend Takumi's hard-earned cash. And she's like, whoops, I guess I should tell Takumi I'm staying over at Nana's. Oh, the way she forgot. And then there's a ring of Nana's phone, and it's Ren. And he says, hello, darling, heart. And she says, don't call me every single day for no reason. Aren't you supposed to be busy recording an album or something? And he says, no, well, not right now. And now she's got the dots. And Hachi's thinking, it's Ren, heart? And he says, the only one who's busy is our workaholic dictator. So, by the way, is Search on your ass again? And she's like, how do you know about that? And they're with a creak of the door. And Hachi's crying, and she's like, I'm so jealous. Ren calls her every single day. And then there's a slam of the door, and she looks at her phone with the dots, and then sets it down with a whap, and says, whatever. Takumi doesn't care where I'm spending New Year's. And she's like, but when we're together, it gives my existence meaning, however small. But what am I worth to Takumi when I'm not around? Reminder of a good home? That he has something good waiting for him at home? Even though he shouldn't be cheating, if he really truly values it, but it's just, he's got such bad, terrible habits. And Ren says, well, that's good. So you can live with Hachiko like before. And she says, yeah, I'm glad. And he says, you're being honest. Who are you? Are you really all right? And she's got the dots and says, well, everyone's so worried, so I haven't said anything, but I really don't care about that article. I've known my mother was selfish ever since she abandoned me. No one ever said she was dead. If she's alive, I wouldn't be surprised if she has kids and a new family. And he says, I know, but... And then she says, but... I really hate having what I don't want people to touch made the most public. And Ren just takes a beat and says, yeah. And then she pauses and says, but I'm doing the best I can. Masato's so worried. She burst into tears when she saw me. Nobu's acting so desperate, it's ridiculous. He's even hanging out with Hachi. And Ren laughs and says, oh, really? And Nana says, there's a lot that makes me happy, so I'm all right, heart. And then the think boxes say, no matter how far apart they are, Nana and Ren have a strong bond. Takumi might mess around, but Ren wouldn't do that. And she's hitting the little shuttlecock like a whap. And she's like, and with Rira? No way. So I'll just stop caring what Search says. So Yasu is on the phone with a ring. And it's Shion who picks it up and says hello. And he says, it's me. I need you to do me a favor. And she's like, what is it? And she's naked in bed with someone, but we don't know who it is. And then the think boxes say, I can let go of what happened in Osaka. As long as Nana's all right, that's enough. And then there's a beep as Ren hangs up and he turns to look at Rira, who's looking at a squirrel. And he says, Rira? And she's like, oh no, the squirrel ran away from the big bad wolf because he scared it. And Ren's got dots and he's like, it's cold, so let's go back. And she's like, so were you talking to Nana again? How's she doing? And he's like, you'll catch cold. The gods will be angry. And then he smiles and says, good. A nearby stranger instead of a faraway lover. And she looks at him with big eyes and says, actually, it's a faraway relative. And he's got dots and says, whatever. You know what I meant. And then he's walking away and she says, you're right. And he turns around to look at her because she looks real sad. And she says, what would going to Sweden do for me now? And he says, why Sweden? And she just pauses and he says, tell me, you know all my secrets. It's not fair. And then she just smiles and says, I just wanted to see it. And he says, see what? And she says, the town where Shin was born and grew up. And he turns around to look at her with like, what? And she says, I thought maybe then I could understand him better. But I'm the one who ended it. And she's thinking about what Shin said when he's like, it's better if we pretend nothing ever happened. And she says, there's nothing I can do for him now. And then the think boxes say, that night I slept in Nana's bed with her. It had been a while since we'd done that. There were so many things I wanted to talk to her about, but I felt so warm and comfortable that I just fell right to sleep. And we see that Ren is hugging Rira very close. And I didn't really put this together before until this moment, but I think another reason why Ren and Rira are bonding so hard right now is because it's almost like they both have lovers that neither of them can have. Rira can't have Shin or Takumi, and Ren, in a way, can't have Nana, and he doesn't want anybody else. So, I don't think that would push them into each other's arms necessarily. I think that they are in the same type of pain, and they are navigating it together. And it's a trauma bond, in a way, but not in a way that I think would make them lovers. And then here we are on a news channel, and they're like a Japanese Music Awards 2001, and the announcers are like, and now for the winner, the new musical artist award goes to, and like Hatchi is just staring at the TV like, you better say the right thing. And it goes, dun dun dun. It says Blackstones, and she's like, eek, they won, heart. And the think boxes say Trapnest turned down award show invitations every year, and they weren't in town to appear on any music shows this New Year's Eve. Blast, on the other hand, was really busy, and Genpai's like, way to go, guys, now hurry up, you're playing first. And then the lady announcer, Kohaku Utagasan, for the New Year's music show on NHK is like, now let's hear a song from Blackstone's Blast. And she's thinking, but still, Trapnest also released a single that day, and their sales were about to surpass Blast's. And Genpai says, you screwed up the lyrics again. This was your chance to shine, but oh no. And she says, my chance to shine is when we go on tour. And there's a vroom of the car. And Nobu says, hey, I'm starving. And Yasuo's over there on his laptop with a click. And Fomasato says, we can eat some oznoni after the countdown during the next show, heart. And that's New Year's soup with rice cakes, and mochi, etc. And then there's an email, it says from Shion, sent 2001 December 31st to Yasu. And Shin says, what's ozoni? I don't want to eat anything, please. And Nobu says, you're really, really sick. Are you all right? And Nana says, if you're that fragile, you won't survive tour. Get it together. And Shin looks really run down in this panel. And then the subject on this email says, report. The Uehara family closed up their restaurant and no one answers the door. Misato won't answer her cell phone either, but since it's New Year's, maybe they went off on a family trip. No worries, leave it to me. I'll stick around for a while and see what's up. I'll be in touch. And Yasu's just reading the email, like, And then the think boxes say, hey Nana, preparing to spend New Year's with you fills me with hope, but the countdown to tragedy had already begun. Just like falling snow that slowly and quietly shrouds you. Dun dun dun. Foreshadowing, guys. Foreshadowing of the bad things to come that I'm not going to talk about. Even though I know already, everybody already knows, but you know. Some people don't. Like, I had told me Lisa that. This is something that I didn't get to say, but last week when I went to a drag show, I actually met someone who was working the coffee counter, who also read Nana. And if you're listening to this, hey girl. um, but when I asked, like, have you read the manga, they said that they hadn't. And I'm like, see, that's why I kept on telling me, Lisa, like, not everyone has. So sometimes you gotta keep the secrets a secret. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all in the next one. Good night.